Coming up on today's episode of the Conservationists Assemble podcast, I am trying something that I have always envisioned in episodes for a well-rounded conversation on species survival, and that is having numerous guests who represent different elements but a collaborative effort of conservation of a species. Of course, it is not something that will always be possible for episodes, taking into consideration time zones and work schedules, but it is something that I feel is very important and I'm trying to make a conscious effort to do more of. So I know the value and content of what my guests today have to say is going to be great as always. I hope you enjoyed gaining a multi-perspective insight into the conservation efforts of Southeast Asia's largest hard-shelled turtle, the critically endangered Malayan Giant Turtle, Orlitia borneensis. Welcome to the Conservationists Assemble, the podcast that seeks to unite with Earth's mightiest conservation heroes, raising the profile of our planet's threatened species and putting the spotlight on the fantastic in situ and ex situ conservation efforts taking place around the world, highlighting the link between them as well as asking those important questions of what more can and needs to be done. Whether you're experienced in species survival or new to animal advocacy, this is the podcast for you. Will you join the fight? I am your host, Jonny, and I'm inviting you to join the ranks of the Conservationists Assemble community as we take the fight to extinction. It feels so good to publish another episode. I just want to thank you for your patience of getting back into the routine of publishing again. With that being said, please enjoy the episode as I welcome my guests at this time. Thank you all for joining me and welcome to the Conservationists Assemble. Before we get started, could you please just introduce yourselves to our listeners and let them know who you are and where you work?
Hi everyone. My name is Dhanu, but Indonesian likes to shorten the name, so I'll go by Dhanu. I'm based in Indonesia, Yogyakarta. Same as Irna and Vanda. And I'm a wildlife conservationist. I run a small local NGOs called Konklusi. We are focusing on the conservation of threatened and neglected species, such as this amazing species that we were going to talk about. But the other species that I'm working on is the Zooquaria, Simon's crocodile, and also the one that just rediscovered in Papua, the Attenborough longbeak echidna. Happy to talk more with you guys.
Fantastic. And we've also got Irna. So Irna, if you could introduce yourself as well, please.
My full name is Irna, but as Dhanu said, we like to shorten our names, so you can call me Irna. And I am actually my background is veterinarian, and I work with the Wildlife Rescue Center Jogja as a conservation program supervisor. But also, I currently work with the foundation as well, the parent organization of the rescue center. It's called the Yogyakarta Nature Conservation Foundation. And there I have a role as the secretary of the board. And my work has been a lot about the various species actually. So I work generally with any type of wildlife because as the rescue center you cannot really predict what's coming in. Yeah, that's pretty much about me.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us. And last but not least, Vanda, if you would like to introduce yourself to listeners too, please.
Hi, everyone. Yes, my name is Vanda. I'm a conservation manager at Gembira Loka Zoo, Yogyakarta. We are located in central Java, Indonesia. So my role as a conservation manager actually oversee the whole husbandry team, vet team, as well as the nutritionist team. And I also oversee our conservation projects, which is why I'm working closely with Irna and Dhanu. And obviously, as a modern zoo, not only that we care so much about practices of animal welfare, but also how we can connect our ex situ program to in situ links. And obviously, becoming one of the biggest zoo in the Central Java as well, we become a place and where rescue animals sometimes come to us, and we have to care for them and rehabilitate. And yeah, the story goes by because we are a multi-species zoos, and yeah, we have a lot of animals to take care of. But at the core of our heart, obviously, conservation is very important to us.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, what a group of people to have joining the podcast today. And it's certainly important to have that mix of in situ and ex situ in line with kind of the one plan approach to conservation. So we're here to talk about the Malayan giant turtle. And I guess the most logical place to start is talking all about this fantastic species. So between the three of you, could you just describe to us all that we need to know about the Malayan giant turtle, please?
Maybe the most unique character about this species is its the biggest hard-shell turtle in Southeast Asia.
Well, this species was amazing, not just the
Yeah.
size, which is the biggest terrapins in the Southeast Asia, but also we found that they are quite pretty threatened. They have this status from the conservation status from the IUCNs, which is the critical endangered, and that was just updated from the 2020, which one of the years that we started this project, when the momentums that they went up from the endangered, and it's among the 25 most endangered or threatened turtles in the world, I guess. Yeah, by the Turtle Conservation Society's book, Rodim et al. um, Now I'm talking like a scientist, not citing the words. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
but on ground, it's also people has a quite um close to them, has a relationship that's in our experience getting into field like in Sumatra and Kalimantan, we found that some of the communities relies on these turtles for their source of the protein itself. Well, regardless the conservation status, which is that's the first big major threats or turning point of all turtles in Indonesia was in 90s. There was a huge exploitation. People caught him sustainably because there's a demand from the international trades, and then they just every turtle has been sent outside.
I think the interesting point in which we maybe didn't really know when we actually started the program was how much of their behavior is actually very interesting in terms of how they mate, how they survive in like different bodies of water, different kind of landscape. Because one of the things, I'm going to jump in straight to the story now, but one of the things that we were concerned about when we actually moved the turtle rescue center to our zoo was that the landscape was just very different. It was in what rescue center, they were pretty much like submerging. We rarely see them, but when in the zoo, they had to adjust with a much more like open space, and they thrive at all. So I think the fact that they're just very adaptable, and you can find them in different types of water, like slow moving rivers or like swamps or even like the large freshwater. I think it really shows how much they survive like in different kind of environments. I think that to me is very, very interesting.
Yeah, certainly a testament to how hardy they are, and then I guess plays into even more of why we should be conserving them. So in terms of the fact that they can inhabit all of these different water sources, what role do they play in the wider ecosystem? What benefit do they have for a freshwater ecosystem?
Well, I think they have so many roles, either for human and other species in the freshwater ecosystem. But the most prominent role of them is their predate small fish and also roll the food web within the freshwater ecosystem. And that's pretty crucial for the balance of what's within the river. Yeah.
This is certainly one of the
Mhm.
great ultimate questions among the conservationists for each of the species
Yeah.
that also we ask as a team here, to especially when we're explaining to the people what is these amazing turtles roles in the ecosystem. We know that we know the in the our biology books from our schools back then. There's a food chains systems, web chain food web, and then all the stuff, but we just don't know. And then this makes as Vanda says, that we very little we know about these species, and probably many of the species in Indonesia that also endangered as well. So that's one of the challenge that we hear. But if we see them as a big turtle, as amongst the big turtle in the ecosystems, uh, the other big turtles like a Batagur affinis and also the Batagur borneensis, they tend, these three big turtles species, terrapin species, they we found that they don't really overlap. So in each part of the ecosystem, they fill the roles as the big big turtle. And if we see the the phase of the life, they can fit in as they still in the eggs, they fit in into the prey of the, for example, um the monitor lizards, and also probably the other lizards, and also other smaller predator as well. And then when they hatch and then grow into sizes, they can be a prey, and also the predator for fishes, and also um the predator such as prey of the predator such as snakes, or also the monitor lizards, or the crocodiles. But once they reach the really bigger size, they will be some kind of the top predators, because nothing's can beat this big turtle. If we see that, if we imagine the 60 to 80 centimeters uh turtles, that very big. The head size is like more bigger than my hands here. So
Yeah, they're
what kind?
huge.
Yeah, it's super huge, super
And
huge.
they're actually
I
very,
cannot
very cute.
imagine.
Like when
Yeah,
you see their
Yeah,
face, they're adorable. I mean, yeah,
yeah.
not
yeah,
They're
encouraging
like
people to keep them as pets, but they are very adorable.
they're smiling.
they are.
They're
Mhm.
smiling. And yeah, we cannot imagine what's the predator of that big turtle, except human, of course.
Yeah, yes.
True champion.
Yeah, the pictures I've seen, they always look very happy, and it does draw you in. And I suppose if that's what people relate to and gets them invested in kind of conserving that species, it's certainly a good thing. And yeah, I've read that they can weigh up to 50 kilos, which is very impressive for a non-sea dwelling turtle.
Yeah.
And it's also really surprising. I think we obviously, when we think about turtles, we typically just think about the 8 species that can be found in the ocean. Freshwater turtles are very overlooked, in my opinion. And so while we are aware that kind of some sea turtles can eat jellyfish, you don't necessarily associate them with being a carnivorous animal or an omnivorous animal. So to hear that they eat fish, or some that some eat snakes, is really quite surprising. So Vanda, you mentioned that we've learned a lot about the reproductive biology since they've come under human care. So talk us through how the project began and how each organization respectively become involved with this project.
Yeah, I think timing and the fact that we just have had a good connection with Wildlife Rescue Center before really plays a role in our cooperation. So in a snapshot, back in 2003 and 2009, Gembira Loka Zoo and Wildlife Rescue Center actually received these confiscated turtles. And so we kind of went our separate ways and keep them in our facilities as time goes by. And Dhanu mentioned earlier that in 2022, actually, their state conservation status got upgraded from endangered to critically endangered. And so 2021, we actually initiated to collaborate with us, like our partners, because actually they still thrive in Wildlife Rescue Center. So initially they only had 19, but when we found out they had like 41. So they survived in this huge pond that we don't know their biology or their production at all. And so Wildlife Rescue actually had to relocate their space, and the zoo decided to take these turtles under our care. And we actually had to build a new facility. And because, like I said, like our environment is just very different. So we made some changes and some tweaks here and there. We transferred the turtles, I think it was 2022. And we actually also made an off-exhibit site where we can, see up close and observe their behavior, etc. And yeah, obviously we can't do it just between us two. Conti really helped us along the way, like meetings and plannings. What are we going to do next? Like, oh, we don't know about this. Like, who knows? Like, no one knows. And then we just have to sit down, figure it out together. And yeah, we have so many partners, and we're very, very lucky to have a lot of like really good partners that are just very kind-hearted and very concerned about these species. So moving forward, since then, I think Irna can talk more later on, and Dhanu, about like how it has connected the in situ part as well. But yeah, that's kind of a snapshot of how the collaboration kind of began.
You've had some milestones since the species has come into your care as well. So just talk us through the key steps into where we are at with the conservation, because if I'm correct, there's certain phases to this project, and what milestones led to those successes and to the decisions of where the project is moving forward.
Well, yeah, the milestone is kind of like surprisingly a milestone. So Vanda had explained before that once the turtle individuals moved in the zoo, one of the biggest concern coming from it was when so we actually want this turtle to breed eventually, but since we move it to the zoo, we start to question, oh, what about the future then of these animals? Will there be a chance for them to breed eventually? And yeah, because at the time there we got no option other than moving it to the zoo and make a new exhibit. And surprisingly, at the 2023, we found like 9 eggs laid by only one female. Yeah, this is something that I need to tell you, that of the 19 adult individuals that we care of, we only have one female. It's so difficult to sex this species. 8 individuals survived, although it's like at first we never know on how many days it's gonna hatch and stuff. So little information about the species, but yeah, we finally got all hatched safely within like 150 days or so. So that's the biggest milestone from our Exeter program. Then now we're slowly moving forward to the institute, which shows, yeah, I think it's improvement constantly. Do you guys want to add more?
Yeah, I think just the interesting thing is that from that 8 eggs, we actually did a bit of research, trial and error, and actually try to hatch them in two different kind of substrates, which is the soil and the vermiculite, like in a box. And all of them survived. They just have different time. I remember, I think the one with the soil was longer, I think. But yeah, I think just, having the eggs and being able to kind of, test what kind of environment they would survive on and so on. That was, to me, very, very exciting. I think everyone would agree as well.
Yeah, certainly very important and interesting, and kind of paves the way for others who might become involved with the breeding of this species down the line. So it is incredibly important to have that baseline of information that kind of sets the bar or for others to go by. So yeah, phase one was establishing that captive population, and phase two began last year. So in terms of additional partners in this holistic approach to conservation, what does phase two look like for this project?
Well, this is Janus' expertise on this on in situ, but I'm gonna give introduction slightly about our in situ project and transition. We initially working with our counterpart as well in Belitung, and also other organization as well who mostly work in situ and coincides with the species as well. And back in 2021, before we even start the project in captive, we already made a visit to the local community there in Sumatra and learned basically about the species and this the habitat that they're living. And but at the time, our priority is ex situ or captive first because there is a shown productivity for the species, and it's just so far away from us in Java in Sumatra to connect in the time. And now that we're build a milestone and captive, we're back again to communicate with the local community and more information on how we are supposed to do in order to move this ex situ population to in situ or in the wild. Danu, you may want to add more about this.
Yeah, just continuing with Irna. So what it looks like next in the next phase is uh we of course we don't want to just stop on the exit to and then make all the keep all these um uh captive breed within our facilities, and then we need to figure out how to transition this and link this into the in situ. And then as Irna mentioned that we already running with the local partner in Belitung, Tebet Rasau, but our aim is to for now the condition in Indonesia, the threats, it's keep ongoing, and uh, the the habitats of these species it's not the loss and the degradation is not stopping. So we need to be really careful on this having a next step on this in connecting with the in situ conservation. That's why we we have fortunate enough to get linked into the Tebet Rasau. It's indigenous communities in Belitung Island that within the geosite of the Tebet Rasau is the name of the geosite, and then they've been safeguarding of the sites, and then one of the key species in there that key interest species interest that also the community want to conserve is the these turtles. I'm gonna stop saying Malaysia giant turtles. Just we usually saying the Orlitia or Bajuku because it's too mouthful to see the Malaysian giant turtle. So either Orlitia or Bajuku. Yeah, and then we Irna, our team partner with the Tebat Rasau, and then for now we're running the community-based monitoring. But what about the other sites? For the other sites in this paradoxal species that really widespread but highly threatened, and then also uh very elusive because it's really very hard to find the species itself when if we want to do the active surveys, for example, for the population monitoring or the any doing any assessment inside. So we're really careful on trying to find where do we can start. So we want to find one, we want to assess in the Sumatra and Kalimantan, is there any places that could be potential safe haven that we could start? We and then last month we just did the field work. This is also a field work for the mapping the genetics of this Orlitia, because that the underlying reason for this genetic mapping is that it's gonna be the reference for determining, at least for our colony, where where's the origin of this species, because one of the step that we need to satisfy in the insurance colony is having the viable genetics of the offsprings. That's why we need to know whether our whether the parents are from Sumatra or Kalimantan. Is it good to pairing cross locality, or we need to conserve the locality in case there's a geographical variation or even subspecies, something like that. And then while we're doing this bridging stuff, bridging from the ex situ facility to the in situ to the field, we're also assessing that the where's the safe haven for this species, where do we can start after this Tebat Rasa, because Tebat Rasa is really, the Belitung Island is really isolated, so it's we still need to find the in situ site, whether in Sumatra or Kalimantan, to pilot to start. Yeah, that's what we're looking for right now at now. And then one of step that it's actually just we just did a training on the species distribution model last Wednesday, right, Irna? With the
Yeah, it's like 2 weeks. Yeah,
yeah
it's been going for two
yeah.
weeks. Mhm.
So first we want to generate the species distribution model to start with, and then see. And then after that we might incorporate the social considerations and political, and then the on the field that's happening right now, because some, the species distribution model is based on the um, biotic and abiotics predictors only.
That, yeah, sounds very exciting, and I'm sure kind of nailing the genetics will almost guide the next decisions within the project. And genetics is quite an interesting one for this species, I think. And so once perhaps you've determined whether there is a locality to or subspecies within this with species, do you think there could be an exchange of genetics with other zoos throughout Asia that house them? If I'm correct, there's perhaps 24 other zoos throughout the region that house this species.
It is super interesting questions that I think we really want to explore that options, right? And then Irna and Vanda will talk about the zoos, but I can say from the perspective of the field, the one of the interesting of this species Orlitia, and also some of the critical endangered turtles, they very rare in the in the field, in their habitats, rare, and quote unquote they have a low detection if we do the active surveys, but people like fishers can find it easily. And then that makes sometimes the cock specimen are sold as whether as a meat, but also as a pet. And then uh, once we get into these genetic mapping journeys, before we with this limitation, we try to found the specimen using the social media, and then the news outlet in the Google. And then surprisingly, there's a lot of people that kept this species and pet, and some of them looks like they have success on breeding. So besides on the legal legal
Facility.
legal side, there's might be, we see these people having
Yeah.
this as a pet and then breed them. We see them as not only as a threat, but also as an opportunity that we might be able to have like a we if we could, we want to change their way of thinking and way of action into more pro-conservation behavior, like having a local pocket of the conservation breedings amongst the Kalimantan, Sumatra, and other stuff. Yeah, that's one of the perspective from the field if you want to enrich this
Yeah,
genetics.
I mean, about the genetics, the major concern for us to do the genetic mapping is that at first we were so confused if we were want to release this species, where to release. That will be the first question. Then the first reference would be to the gold standard. The genetic would come first, but the problem is this species hasn't got the reference gene at all, uploaded in any gene database, like a gene bank, for example. So that makes us very, even more um, difficult on to determine where to release this species in the future. Then there is, a way to bridge that through mapping those individuals in Kalimantan and Sumatra at first, to see on whether there's any difference between those in Sumatra and Kalimantan. And in our plan, this is outside the in situ as well, or specifically ex situ, is if we find the genetic marker of this species, meaning the locality of this species, and then upload the reference to the gene bank, then it can help other institutions to find or to test their collection, and then to see where they come from, and then try to find the local partner who works with this species. That's the main idea of the genetic. And talking about the zoo, we eventually want to incorporate some zoos, the collection of the species within some zoos in Indonesia, just to test on whether this method, the data that we achieve in the future can solve that uh, problem. But I'm not quite sure on the situation of the species at the zoo, because in my experience collecting the samples from few zoo institutions in Sumatra and Kalimantan, they sometimes put this species as other species, meaning misidentification still common to happen in many zoos. So yeah, what about it, Vanda? You can add more.
Yeah, I mean, there are certainly complexity in the in situ part and as well as the ex situ part. I mean, the fact that we know these turtles can eat and quite, I wouldn't say quite easily, because I know in Europe there's so many zoos that have put a lot of effort, and just it's not the same. The humidity are different, traits, however, is different. So I think now that we have I don't know how many, like 60 plus individuals, right? We cannot hold, at some point it wouldn't make sense for us to hold more and more. So yes, we do need other partners, other zoo to help us care for these animals. And um, um, wrong identification is another thing. I think my biggest concern is that because this animal is not seen as a sexy species, quote unquote, it can be challenging to display them so that they're more interactive, right? If you have a nice like kind of aquarium in a glass, like you wouldn't really see them being very active. And I know zoos might have this consideration, they want to display animals. So I think we also need to kind of sell to the other zoo that these animals are actually very easy to keep. They eat like pretty much anything that you would give them. They survive in different kind of habitats. You can put in your moat and they will thrive as well. You can put them in a nice display of, aquarium, and they would swim beautifully. And you can mix it with many other species and they wouldn't be so, intrusive, so to say. So I think these are the things that the holders or the zoo needs to understand, so they would be willing to take care of this Orlitia and not seeing it as something that they would be like not prioritizing. I think that is key. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that speaking on behalf of the European population, it's quite there's not a huge genetic diversity amongst the European population, from what I understand, and you mentioned the specific aggression between individuals earlier, and I think that is something that zoos in Europe are struggling to deal with in terms of being able to house different genders efficiently. And so it did kind of lead to a decline in the interest of zoos in Europe keeping the species, which is a shame. But I know that there's still some zoos doing some looking into assisting breeding in Europe. So there is still some interest there. But yeah, it'd be nice to kind of create that link a bit more, I guess, between you guys and the zoos in Europe, if that isn't already in place.
Yeah, I think we want to shout out one of our funder, which is the Northern Ark. It's from Sweden, that has been supporting us for this genetic mapping, which is very, as Irna and Vanda mentioned, it's very crucial, not only for our colony, because most of the good zoos or zoos that kept huge number of the Orlitia in Indonesia as well, most of them don't know the locality of these species, so it would not only help us, but as you said, the exchange of the potential parents, or individual loan, zoo loan. So yeah, is it? Yeah, right, Irna, Vanda.
Yeah, correct, completely correct.
Yeah, it definitely seems like there's potential for exchange of information and more, if as and when kind of the time needs. So that's exciting. So what do you think going forward the future of the project holds in terms of the next steps once we've got the genetic mapping out the way? Are there any key other organizations that need to be brought in, or yeah, where do we stand?
Well, obviously, we'll be happy to see other organizations coming in, be interested to work on this species for sure. And currently, we have like more than 5 partners as well, working with this species in Indonesia only. So in the future, our stance is still collaborative. That's our main value for this project. So we will be very open to anyone who wants to help for this species. And but we still have much gap to work with for the species, because initially we did a study, like the very short skimming of the literature for the species, and we only found like in total 18 publications about this species. That's very lacking, and that's why we would encourage anyone who ever worked with this species to just be in touch with us. Any information would be helpful. And one of the things which is now in our priority after the genetic would be back again to the in situ, where we need a baseline study on the population itself, the population estimation in the wild. So it could help us to decide for the rescue perspective, like how many individuals we initially could release in the future, and the sex ratio in which type of the habitat and characteristic, and the habituation process as well. Um, we would work towards that direction, I think.
Fantastic. And so I suppose for kind of people who aren't based in and around Indonesia, how can everyone keep up to date with the developments of the project and support the project should they wish?
That's challenging.
That's a good question that we
Well,
never thought about.
because
But I think they can just keep up with the our social medias and websites from the WRC Jogja in Instagram, and then the Gembira Loka Zoo in Instagram, or and other platform, and also the konklusi, and then try to visit our website as well, and then eventually we will also publish our research as a peer-reviewed publication, so that it will be available for the people for the support. Maybe Irna Vanda again.
well,
No, I think if you are a researcher or if you're a student who are actually interested in this species, we have a lot of data that we still need to cook and manage. And yeah, I know like Bandang, who is actually doing the genetic work, he actually encourages his student to work on some of the morphometric data that we have at the zoo with these species. So I think that link up is really, really nice, like encouraging people, students who are interested in, turtle species, Orlitia, to be more involved in like writings, or if they want to, present it in presentations. I think there's a lot of that need to kind of echo the program and the initiative so that people are more open
yeah,
and
I mean, we're quite lucky
inspired, I
that
think.
this collaboration includes different types of group. Me, as a representative of the rescue center, we have so many networks from the rescue centers. Dhanu, who works with so many herpetologists, biologists, people working in the field, and Vanda as well works really amazing with the zoo institutions, whether it be within Indonesia or outside Indonesia. So it's kind of a good collaboration, but also a challenging in the process. I got so many questions at the beginning because is it just like the turtle as in people knowing turtle is the red-eared sliders. That's the most common species in Indonesia that everyone knows because it's just everywhere. So, and we have so many flagship charismatic species like a tiger, orangutans, rhino, you name it. We got a lot, and um, it's like a competition to raise this species. Not a competition as in a really tight competition, but to work with this such a overlooked and neglected species among other big giant species. And yeah, I got lucky to have these guys to work with.
Yeah, and I think like working on the species that are often overlooked, the thing is that there's not
Yeah,
many political
Yeah.
or like ego involved within the program, right? You genuinely work with people who actually care about the animal and not like, trying to prove something to someone or an organization. I think that is really, really nice. But then, yes, we would also need to voice ourselves even more, like Danu and Irna mentioned, how important our work, as important as other important species as well. Like I think that um is something that not many people understand. Actually, I mean, even amongst conservationists, right? Like maybe they would prefer to work with more charismatic species, which is fine. But I think there's a lot of work needed to be done for non-charismatic species as well, especially in Indonesia.
I do think the attitude's changing. If you want to genuinely be able to make a difference in conservation, some of the most progressive work is happening with your lower vertebrates and invertebrates now. And yes, like you mentioned, they're not charismatic species, but they are generally, ones that it can make a huge difference with, because they don't need as many resources to conserve them in terms of land space. So if you're looking at your large megafauna, it's so much more difficult. And as you've mentioned, because they're charismatic, you've got so many people involved with it. Whereas, there's so many species that are flying under the radar because they're not deemed an iconic animal. So to finish up the episode, do you have any last messages for our listeners?
I do have. Thank you so much for you guys who has been listening to this point. And then this is a great gesture for us to see how you care of this species, and one way to support these species, just spread the information of these species. And if you want to support us more, you can just contact Jonny or one of us here, and then we'll be happy to talk with you.
Fantastic. I'll be sure to provide links to all of your social media pages in the episode's show notes. And obviously, if anyone's ever visiting Indonesia, I'm sure the guys would be more than happy to have you at the zoo or at the rescue centre as well, and you can really get a first-hand look at the amazing work that's going on. So Irna, Vanda, and Dhanu, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. It's been great to listen about the efforts that are in place for this species, and I'm excited to keep up to date with how the project progresses in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you for
us.
having us, Johnny.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for
An
having
absolute
us.
pleasure. I've enjoyed learning so much about this species, and there's, like I say, there's not much on it, but what I have read is all really exciting. So I'll share links to all of the research papers that I've found as well, in case people do want to read them.
Sure.
Really, really exciting. I had a great time, and I feel more attached to the species, and I haven't even seen one. So hopefully the listeners will feel the same.
Yeah.
And there we have it, another amazing conversation. It's such an awesome feeling being able to have these conversations with people. I always come out of them feeling so empowered and attached to the species we've been discussing. And I hope you do too. With that being said, please consider following WRC Jogja, Konklusi and Gembira Loka Zoo on their social media pages that I've linked below to stay up to date with all the latest developments. And if you're planning a trip to Indonesia, maybe you'll want to find time to visit the centres to see the work firsthand too. The team are carrying out some amazing work, but there's still more to be done. So for any budding conservation biologists looking for a species or project to get involved with, perhaps you might be able to contribute to researching more about the Malayan Giant Turtle. If any of you wonderful listeners happen to work in a collection that houses Orlitia borneensis outside of Southeast Asia, I would love to learn more about the current population within Europe or America, for example, and discuss how zoos outside of their home range can further contribute to the work for this species. So please feel free to email the podcast. Finally, please follow, rate, subscribe, and share the podcast wherever you listen. If you have any feedback on how you thought this multi-perspective episode went, please feel free to comment. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.